Welcome to the Solution Point, where we talk about solutions for your business, your life, and the law. My name is Joseph Michael Dickerson from the J.M. Dickerson Law Firm, business solutions, legal solutions for your business and life. And let me start off by introducing my co-host and my better half, Catalina Dickerson.
Hi, everybody.
All right, and our guest today is a really fantastic attorney. Not just because he's here, but I have experience dealing with him personally on in various categories. He is a partner in the Person, Mohrer, Morales, Baldemar Garcia, and Gutierrez law firm. And I always thought that PMBG, that the BG was Baldemar Garcia. And
that's on purpose.
I kind of thought that. So anyway, so you're welcome to our podcast. And I know you have, here we try to talk about solutions for business, for life, for legal solutions. So, I think today you have a very pertinent one that is very timely for, well, it's timeless actually.
Timely for everything.
Yeah, it's how to hire an attorney. So, or what to look for when hiring an attorney. And it just so happens you are a guest author in our Dickerson Digest. And
Thank
so
you. We really appreciate it.
We've got your article in there, but I think we can do a little bit deeper dive and get it straight from the horse's mouth in living color. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's talk about your solution.
Well, a little bit about myself. I'm Laredo, Texas, born and raised, left for a little while to go to school, college and law school, and then came back and have been here ever since. So Laredo's where I grew up, not by choice, because this is where my parents were and their parents before them. And it's also where I've chosen to have a career, raise a family, live my life. So I think Laredo's got a lot to offer. It's been one of the more trying eras, I think, in Laredo with even before the pandemic with the violence in Mexico. So it's different than it was when we were growing up, but it's still a great place to be. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Laredo. So I've been practicing law for maybe 25 years. I do appellate work, I do litigation, a little bit of customs work, but the article that I wrote for the Dickerson report was something I had been thinking about for a while, maybe never thought about putting it into an article, but just ideas that I've had, or philosophies that have developed over time, of course, seeing different situations with different clients, all different types of clients, all different types of legal situations. So Mike, I know, being around business people and being around other lawyers, I haven't met one business person who likes dealing with lawyers or that likes being in a lawsuit, whether they're suing or getting sued. And I think we all understand why. And so I always thought, well, maybe it's not an ideal situation for a business person to be in, or an individual, but I think there are some misconceptions out there, both on the side of the clients, whether it's a business or an individual, and even on the side of the lawyers. And so in writing the article, I thought maybe if both sides had a different attitude, maybe the brush with the legal system wouldn't be so unpleasant.
Right. And just to remind our viewers and our listeners, and I don't know if we mentioned it, but the article that Baldemar shared with us in our Dickerson Digest is 4 things to know before hiring a lawyer. So I think that's, just as you set that up, it's critical to have kind of a foundation or a framework to kind of go in or get your mind ready before you start to choose them. And so you talked about investigating and inquiring, interview price, and then selecting. So tell us some more about that.
Well, I can't remember the article. I should have looked at it before we started. But this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. I think like everyone, no matter what you need today, we live in an enlightened age of the internet. So there's no excuse to be ignorant about anything.
Yeah.
Ever. So like you, Catalina and Mike, if I have a question, just like everybody out there, if I have a question, I open my phone and Google it. And you can use whatever search engine you want, of course, but Google's kind of ubiquitous. So I'll Google how much does a new dashboard cost for my car if my dashboard has a crack, was one. Or if you want to do some repairs around the house, you'll say, or your car, or whatever it is, you Google it, and sure enough, you get a little bit of information. And then you watch a YouTube video or two, and with most things around the house, I'll say, that's above my skill level. I can't do it. I'm going to hire somebody to do it. And if it's real simple, like for example, the battery in my wife's car key, I typed in, battery replacement. Sure enough, on my phone, a 15-second video that showed how to do it. I didn't have to go look at the owner's manual, and I did it. So
Yeah.
it was real easy. So kind of the same thing when it comes to hiring a professional. I would tell anyone, if you have a certain legal problem, you Google for a lawyer in the jurisdiction that you're in, Laredo, San Antonio, wherever. And of course, you're going to see paid ads, and then you're going to see your search results. And it's like buying a house or buying a car or deciding to see a movie. You can scroll at your leisure. If somebody catches your attention, you can dig a little deeper. There might be someone who you dislike or someone who you like, and you can narrow your choices down. And I think I mentioned in the article, I think other than just typing in something general like probate lawyer in San Antonio or criminal lawyer in El Paso, or whatever your search engine is, or your search query is, then maybe once you start seeing a couple of names and you learn a little bit about the subject area, then you can get a little more specific and say, well, I searched for trial lawyer in Laredo, but I have a contract situation, or I have an accident, or I got ripped off. And so the more you narrow your search, or just in general, like what to do when someone breaches a contract, or what to do when someone won't return your deposit, or whatever the problem is, right? You can get a little more well-versed with the situation that you're in, and then you can see if, in addition to saying, well, I found a lawyer that handles my area or the subject that I'm involved with, but maybe I can get a little more narrow. Like, for example, you're getting a divorce lawyer, family lawyer in Laredo, and say for whatever reason, there's a prenup agreement involved, a prenuptial agreement. You might see under one of those persons on your search, litigated over 1,000 prenuptial agreements. And you go, wow, that's exactly my problem. And so you think, well, this person's done what I need to have done, and they've done it several times. So they'll know exactly what to do. So I think if you do that, if you start with Google and see what that...
Along those lines, what do you think about the Google reviews?
I think those are great. I think that, of course, if they're honest, like everything, when I buy something, if I see 9 good reviews and 1 bad one, I figure, well, maybe this, whatever it is I'm buying, right, a pair of running shoes or going to see a movie, I think you take it with a grain of salt. I think it's a little bit of it's an insight or a peek into the person. Some of them I think are paid. Some of them, I think like most people, the real glowing reviews, I tend to ignore. The real bad ones, I tend to ignore. But if they're more positive, I guess once they're aggregated, if they're more positive than negative, I tend to go by that. If it's a product, if the first 10 reviews say stay away from this product, it's terrible, well then I don't get the product. But if it says, oh, this is fantastic, well then at least like for bigger purchases, I've noticed like buying a car or something like that, you can read a review, you can see a YouTube video, people like it, people don't, and you can really look around at prices and colors and options and reviews and
Do you
really
think
kind
that,
of.
do you think that people here in Laredo, I mean, as far as, like say for looking for attorneys, um, and we do that, we go to Google, we look at that, and I kind of hear you, what you're saying is, have, in mind what you're looking for in those highlights. But do you think that at least regionally here, and maybe even in the Valley, if you know some of there, but are attorneys representing themselves? Do you see, I mean, I've seen your website. It's fantastic. It's, it's going, and I look for that. But is there, are people, are attorneys, are they representing themselves enough and giving people enough of them so they can make an informed decision?
I think the answer to that is generational. And by that, I mean the older lawyers that didn't grow up with the internet or technology don't. So you'll hear so-and-so's a great lawyer and has been practicing in a certain area for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and they don't have a website, or they have a real generic website. And they may be the best lawyer in town for that type of work, but you wouldn't know it from their website or their digital footprint. By the same token, I think the younger lawyers will have real nice websites. They'll optimize them for the phone, for phone use as opposed to computer, because I've seen fancy websites that look great on your computer, but that you can't see it on your phone. So I think the younger lawyers do a better job of marketing themselves on the internet, which is, I was having the conversation with someone a while ago saying, well, if we were going to have an actual marketing budget, how much would we want to spend on TV?
Mhm.
I said, well, there are a lot of people that don't watch TV anymore. And when they do, they DVR and they don't watch commercials. And I said, radio? Well, maybe a little bit, but a lot of people have satellite radio, or they hook up their phone to their car. And newspaper, a lot of people don't get the newspaper. They read it online. A lot of people get their news from Facebook. So, a billboard, maybe phone book. I mean, who even has a phone book anymore?
Yeah, who opens the phone book anymore?
So really the only place is the internet.
Right.
So so that's why I think it's easy for people. It's anonymous. You look at different lawyers, you compare them. Maybe you come up with 2 or 3 names, and then I think once you've picked 2 or 3 names, or maybe if you know somebody that's a lawyer, that's a resource too. And then you can at that point call somebody up and make an appointment, maybe get either a phone consultation or make an appointment, and then pick based on what you hear.
Yeah.
You pick on base who calls you back too, and who's
Right.
being responsive.
Right.
And Baldemar, you and I have known each other for probably the 25 years that we've each been in practice. One of the things that I really appreciate about the way you talk to your clients when they have a case is you always get them down to earth, and you get them their heads out of the clouds of, I don't care, I want justice, it's the principle that matters. Cost is no issue at all. And you and I have both had those clients and the nightmares that result from saying, okay, then let's go for it. But I know, just because you and I work together, and I don't litigate, so I tend to refer cases to you. But you have a way of bringing people down to earth and kind of explaining to them, okay, you're going to spend this much money, but are we going to be able to recover that? So if you wanted to sue your deadbeat brother-in-law for $1 million that he owes you, but he doesn't have 2 cents to rub together, we're going to spend a lot of money to get a piece of paper that is pretty worthless.
Right.
Is that something that maybe is important when you're talking to a lawyer, to kind of just get some grounding and honest feedback, as opposed to, you've been injured, we're going to get money for you no matter what.
Right. So and kind of to build on that, I mean, I think most of us, hopefully most ethical lawyers will tell a client, if you've been damaged, it's a contract or an injury or whatever it is, and you're looking to recover a set amount. Say you were ripped off $100,000, and you say, okay, well, we're going to sue for $100,000, and we're going to try to recover the attorney's fees associated with recovering your $100,000. But assuming you don't recover, how much do you want to spend? Which is a business decision, and it's a risk analysis. And like you mentioned, if I'm suing somebody who's got a lot of money, well, maybe my chances of recovering are higher. If the would-be defendant doesn't have any money, well, then maybe you shouldn't bother. But I'll tell people, I always try to preface it with, nobody hires me or calls me for my business advice or my life advice or political advice. It's always just legal advice. So I always tell people, here's the law and how it would apply to your facts. And I will identify the other issues. Like I'll say, okay, it's a business call for you to make. Would you spend $10,000 to try to recover $100,000? And most people say, well, that's 10%. Okay, I'm out 100,000, I can stomach another 10. Of course, if they were out $10,000, they wouldn't want to spend another 10. So I'll tell them, the economics are there. It's up to you to decide. Of course, our chances of success and actually recovering, right? Success, are we right? And actual recovery, depending on who the defendant would be. So those are things that I'll tell them, look, everybody's got different appetites for risk and for how much they're willing to spend. And some clients will tell you, well, I sue everybody who doesn't pay me because I want the industry to know that if they don't pay my account, they're going to get sued. And I'll say, well, that's fine. And I used to do defense work for a tire company a long time ago, and they never settled. And it seemed on a case-by-case basis a little irrational, but it was part of their corporate mentality that they didn't pay plaintiffs' lawyers for tire defect cases. Same thing. I had a trucking company that was real tough, and the plaintiffs' lawyers knew that, and people out in the industry knew that you sue this company, it's going to be very hard to recover. So if you've got like a core value, or you've got, you're a big company and you can afford that sort of approach, that's fine. But I like to take it a little further than just telling someone, and this is what I was talking about, misconceptions, I think, from lawyers. If someone says, I have a $50,000 dispute or a $75,000 dispute, and you'll say, well, you're kind of in that middle gray area. Yes, you should send a letter, maybe sue, but boy, if it's $75,000, real quick, you're going to spend $7,500.
It could be the attorney fees if it goes to trial.
Right. So you say, if we sue and they want to pay you, good idea. A little bit of discovery, maybe written discovery, not so expensive. But once you start taking depositions, those are a few $1,000s each. And you've got to do at least a couple. And so the traditional way that most lawyers, I think, approach litigation is very orthodox, right? There's steps you follow and there's a procedure. And I think lawyers do it because that's the way we've always done it. And I think lawyers do it because, God forbid, something happens on the case that's out of their control, or they make a mistake and they get sued. Let me see if I can reject that. Sorry about that. Okay. And so you'll see, again, a very traditional orthodox approach of, well, if you're at $75,000 or $100,000, you're in this sort of gray area. If we follow the traditional, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but maybe very traditional, predictable approach, you may not get the recovery you want. You might spend a lot of money and the case won't progress, and you're gonna get frustrated. The client's gonna get frustrated, and it's gonna take 6 months or a year or 2 years, and the client says, forget it. So what I try to recommend, and I don't think it's as common as it should be, is I'll tell clients, maybe you don't want to spend $25,000 to collect $100,000. That's too much, and it's going to take too long, and the odds of recovering aren't so great, and you don't have the willingness to wait for 2 years. I'll tell them, if we take a less traditional approach and really just go for what's most important and be a little aggressive on the front end and start out aggressively, maybe we get the case in a posture to where we can settle it on favorable terms. And you'll be glad you did it, but it's going to take a little bit more risk maybe than the client's used to, or maybe really more risk than the lawyer's used to. And so I think that's an area where lawyers can help clients in situations where maybe they weren't getting helped in the past. And it takes the lawyer being a little more creative or a little more open-minded to take some approaches that are less orthodox, and in order to attain the objective and attain it cheaply. I think I've used it with you, Mike, before, and I've used it with I have a client that it worked. I have two clients that it recently worked for. And I told them very candidly, I said, you don't have the money to fight with this organization for very long. They have insurance, you don't. If they start sending discovery and taking depositions, they're gonna bleed you. You're not gonna be able to afford it. They're gonna crush you. And I said, but if we go in and, in this case, I said, if we get a temporary restraining order and a temporary injunction and bring the fight to them real soon, maybe they take a step or two back and we cut a good deal. And so the client said, great, let's try that. And I said, remember, if this doesn't work, we're in trouble. You spent some money and we're not going to get the outcome you want. So the analogy I used with him is I said, it's as if you're a boxer and you're going to fight somebody, and that somebody you're fighting is much bigger than you and much stronger than you and much more experienced than you, and you are really the underdog. So you have a very slim chance of winning, and the only way you're going to win is a first round knockout. You're just going to have to go for broke and hope you get a little lucky and hope that the other side's not prepared, because not many people do it that way. And you get lucky and you land a lucky punch, or again, it's somewhat luck, but again, it's a different approach. So you're saying, I'm going to push real hard, and maybe, in the boxing setting, you get a knockout and you win.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't get the knockout, there's no way. You're in for 11 rounds of abuse, and you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
But at least that, I think, is preferable for a lot of clients than saying, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Is there a place where you can backpedal from there? Can you be the pugilist, the boxer coming in, and then your first punch didn't land? Is there a quick option? Just as there was a quick, option to go in, can we backpedal from that? Or you have to go the 11 rounds or the 12 rounds?
Well, I think you go for the knockout. If you don't get the knockout, you're going to probably, like in the legal setting, you're going to have to dismiss your case, or you're going to just have to unfortunately swallow the bitter pill of not getting what you wanted. So
it's the cost of pride. The cost of pride can sometimes be a bargain if you back away quick enough, right?
Yes. So and Mike and I had a case just recently where we sort of adopted this approach. We said, rather than, for example, depose everyone, right? Because you don't want to be criticized that you weren't thorough enough. So rather than depose the plaintiffs and the defendants and their experts and get reports and follow this sort of very sort of regular approach, I thought, well, there's one star witness for us. And if we get this star witness, we're set. Mm-hmm. So why don't we ignore everyone else, not even bother with the written discovery, and only do it because it's cheap and just to be on the safe side. But our main focus will be chasing this expert or this witness and getting their testimony and commemorating it. And that'll be the first and thing that we do. And once we get that, then we'll try to negotiate a good deal, knowing that we're in a position of strength.
Right.
And so rather than waste time or fight or do all these other sort of procedural things that lawyers are creatures of habit too. and they'll say, well, this is sort of the way we all play the game, and this is the way it's always been done. Um, it's if you will, for lack of a better example, but you'll see war movies like World War I movies or colonial times where all the soldiers sort of marched out in a row and they lined up and they met each other on the battlefield, and there were these steps to warfare. And then you see the frontier and you see Native Americans that are attacking one area or attacking another, sort of guerrilla warfare. And it was very effective because what people were used to was sort of marching out and everybody sort of playing by the same rules. And you have this sort of new approach. Like I told a friend of mine, I said, when you watch the old Westerns, right? So you see a family on the frontier and they'd be on their little farm or whatever it is, and they'd be in their house, and they'd say the minute or they'd smell something burning, and they'd say, what's burning? And all of a sudden they would hear horses stampeding towards their ranch, and they'd say, oh my God, we're being raided. And they'd say, oh, that smell of smoke is they've lit our barn on fire. And then the minute they go outside, they say, oh no, before they lit the barn on fire, they let all the horses out. So the poor family was always in a panic. And the guns, oh gosh, the guns are in the barn, now we can't defend ourselves. So now granted, it was probably a small band of Native Americans carrying out the raid. But the reason they did it is because they had the element of surprise, and they said, rather than march out into a field and engage in this sort of very orderly combat, we're going to have the element of surprise and disorient the opponent and come at them from angles when they're not ready. And so it sort of applies in the legal context if you're the smaller litigant, or you don't have the time. Like I've always told people, if you need a quick resolution, you've got a deadline, 60 days, 90 days, a year. I tell them the legal system isn't built for that. If delay is what you want to do, you've gone to the right place, right? Legal system. Or if you want to make somebody spend a lot of money, again, you're in the right place. But if you want a quick, efficient resolution on a manageable budget, I mean, the courthouse is the last place you go.
Yeah.
Well, let's change gears a little bit, and let's, another thing that's important in our podcast is talking about core values. And we have a set of core values that we make our decisions here in the office, whether we hire somebody, fire somebody, whether we take a client or not. They all have to pass these core values. And you had mentioned you guys have some core values, and you personally have some core values. Well, why don't we talk about one of the core values that you have in mind?
Well, like I mentioned to you earlier, and it kind of dovetails with that approach I've told you, is to give the client the best solution for the best price. And so I've told clients before, when we quote a retainer or I give them an estimate of fees, I'll tell them, I would much rather charge you $50,000 and give you an 80% chance of winning than say charge you 25 and give you a 20% chance of winning. So I think most clients agree with that. Is they say, I want to spend as little as possible, but I want the best odds of winning. And don't charge me less and give me inferior service, and I lose and the money is lost, and I'm no better off. So I'll try to sit with them early on and tell them, here's where I think your case is strong, here's where it might be weak, here's the approach that I think would be best, and here are the odds. And so given the cost and the odds, and maybe custom tailoring a solution for them that maybe is not as orthodox as what they might hear from another lawyer, then let them decide and try to give them the solution or the answer that they want and tell them this is the best way to get the outcome that you want. And it might be, usually it's through settlement, but like everything, you're going to get the best settlement if you've put yourself in a position of strength, or you capitalize on some leverage that you have, and try to do that for them at a fair price, and giving them the best solution, and maybe being creative about it, or like I said, taking a different approach that maybe another lawyer wouldn't be willing to do.
What I'm hearing you say is, you need to provide value to the clients. You need to show them that there's value, and people don't mind spending money if they can see a value. People buy Mercedes Benz or other Toyotas. Why? Because they're gonna last long, and so whatever the price is, they make a value determination, and it's that's so important in finding the right attorney. We tend to screen clients, and if they're price shopping, they're probably not our type of client, because we're not going to provide the cheapest service. And cheap is a word that's not allowed in our office. Inexpensive is not allowed in our office. Because we're providing a service that has a value, and you're one of my big referral partners. So, I know that you provide a great value. You have 2 board certifications. You have, 25 years of litigation experience. You have all the credentials, but then you also bring the common sense, like we've been talking. It's like, look, this is the way it is. Here's what you're realistically looking at. We can try this if you want to invest this much, but you're bringing that value to them of knowing, look, this is in the 25 years of experience, I can estimate what's going to happen. I can kind of predict the type of opponent we have, if it's going to be something that a letter or me just showing up to the case is going to be effective to push the other side one way or the other. So and that's how I talk my way out of litigation is I tell people, look, if I file a lawsuit, they're going to say, oh yeah, Mike's not going to do anything. He just shows up to court when somebody dies. So I tell them, I'm not the big scary lawyer. You need somebody who knows what they're doing, and you need somebody who's a very good litigator. And you're one of the people that I often recommend for litigation, just because you have that experience, you have the track record. And so when you come onto a case, it's like, well, we're not going to be able to just, pull the wool over this guy's eyes and say, oh, these aren't the droids you're looking for. Your case isn't really that strong. You've been around the block. You know when a case is good, when a case is weak, and the other side isn't going to be able to talk you out of your case. And so you bring that knowledge and that expertise. Plus there are other attorneys, and the example I tend to use is the guys that can only remember one number. Those guys, they're not going to really know the depth of the issues. They're just going to file and do their process to try to get as much money as possible. Whereas my experience with you has been, you really look at the issues and you learn about whatever that industry is that you're dealing with. And I know here in Laredo, transportation, customs, those are really deep issues. I mean, you're even a licensed custom broker. I know you don't really practice that, but the fact that you have that license means you had to understand what it is. That test isn't an easy test. Most people don't pass it. So you have the knowledge on top of the procedural skill to get things going. So that's I think a huge value that you bring to the table when you're meeting with clients.
Well, I try to stress that, and it's nice. Usually your reputation is useful with the judge of the case, because the judge will know if you do good work, if you're ethical, if you're if you've studied and you're familiar with the law and the facts and you're prepared. And it also helps, like you mentioned, with the opposing lawyer, if you have a reputation of knowing what you're doing and bringing value insofar as, well, if it's a case that's maybe got some weaknesses, this lawyer is more knowledgeable, so they know how to fix those weaknesses, or they know they're familiar enough with the area to approach the case from a different angle and make it a stronger case. And I've told people before, like, I've had people where we've had a breach of contract. And I said, well, yeah, it's a breach of contract case, and it's a very complicated contract, and it's hard to understand, and it's not real exciting as a breach of contract case. And I said, but if we made it a fraud case, it's a lot more attractive, and it's a lot easier to follow, and it's a lot easier to explain. And I had the client in that case say, well, I don't think it's a fraud case. I said, well, let's see how it goes. And sure enough, when we settled it at the end, the guy kept saying, but I've been defrauded. And I thought, this is a person who didn't think it was a fraud case at the beginning. So your reputation, will help you with opposing lawyers, with the judge, with your own client. I think hopefully they come to appreciate you and come to value you. With my work, which is a little different than yours, Mike, is with my work, there's already a problem.
Yeah.
You prevent problems.
Yeah.
And you do a good job of it, and you do it in a cost-effective way that makes a lot of sense and saves a lot of headaches. But the people who don't go see you, it's like a doctor. You do the prevention and the treatment, and if they don't go see you, then they come see me when they have the problem that they didn't prevent, right?
Yeah.
He's the PCP. He's the primary care physician.
Right.
So
right.
that's actually
the
the
surgeon.
culture. Yeah, you're the surgeon. That's the culture that we're trying to create and foster. And you spoke briefly about it, about, they're coming to you with these, fireball cases, like you said. They come to you and there's already a problem. And I can't help, but point out the other side, which is Mike's side. And we're trying to minimize you getting to that point, and not have you be the David to the Goliath. We're trying to, bolster up and inject that David with a little more steroids, with a little more protection, so that when they go up to that Goliath, they are better prepared. They are already better protected. But we appreciate you speaking with us today. And I love, seeing you guys work as a duo, and we're always happy to let people know that if they need a litigator here in Laredo, we always refer you.
Well, that's very kind of you, and I like
if you need us to stop, we'll stop.
the feeling's mutual. When I get something from Mike, he'll say, here's the problem, and here's why there's a problem, and here's the probable solution, but it's falling apart. So he's very good at telling me what the mess is and what it might take, but then he doesn't actually clean up the mess. He just said, I've kind of like when you get home and you say, I can spot the mess. Do I actually want to clean it up? No, but I can spot it, and I know why it happened.
Yeah.
So
I can tell you where it is. Very good.
Yeah. And I know what it's going to take to fix it. I just don't want to be the one to have to do it.
Yeah. Well, Baldemar, thank you again. If somebody needs to reach you, if somebody has a litigation problem, how is the best way to reach out to you or your website?
If they Google Baldemar Garcia Laredo, they'll find the website. The initials of my firm are behind me, PMBG. I think the domain is PMBG Law. So if they go to our website, of course, they've got the phone number, they've got the email address, and even if they Google me, and we've got now an automated or a computer-based phone system, so it's a lot easier to get calls out of the office. So I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. I hope I gave you enough time to.
In in the description, and I know that you've got an excellent website. We've seen it, and you have a contact page. So I'll make sure that we put that in the description below.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. And till next time.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.